What's going on? Okay, let me just be honest with you. I've been in a little bit of a creative rut lately. This ever happened to you? I've been having a harder time getting jazzed up about my creative work in the past month. The ideas are not coming to me as smoothly, as quickly as they usually do, and I'm just not feeling as excited to execute on the ideas I've been having lately. I've seen a few projects that I initially had some high hopes for totally fall flat, and I feel like this has me not totally feeling like myself. Or maybe I have that totally backwards. Maybe it's not that I don't feel like myself because my creativity is stuck. Maybe my creativity is stuck because I'm not totally feeling like myself. Whoa. I'm a naturally curious person, and so I'm constantly exploring new places, new ideas, new experiences, and trying to make connections. That's where a lot of my creative energy comes from. I'm also very much an external processor, and so when I make these connections, it supports a natural, steady output of creative work. When I'm doing well, I'm ready to create. I'm ready to tell stories. And throughout most of last year, that was the case. I revamped this channel. I committed to making a video at least every other week, and I was successful at that. I gave myself permission to cover a wide range of topics and found a few that worked especially well. I also wrote a bunch, I made a lot of digital drawings, and I really felt like I spent a good long time in that creative flow state. Until I just wasn't there anymore. Now there are a bunch of somewhat obvious reasons for me why my creativity shouldn't be expected to be super flowing right about now. I have a pair of brand new newborns in the house, and on top of that we have a 2-year-old with 2-year-old energy. In the past 2 months we've had illnesses, we've had complicated stuff delay payments on our paternity leave situation, we've had school closures because of COVID, and on top of all that, so much of my creative work is inspired by exploring, by travel and getting immersed in different places, different experiences with different people. And I've been pretty cut off from that. My recent life hasn't exactly allowed for a whole lot of that. Being cut off from the thing that most inspires my creative work, it's like being a chef who loses his sense of taste. I mean, can you imagine that? Actually, that has happened before.
So literally everything just kind of got stripped away, including my taste buds.
That's the renowned chef Grant Achatz, and his episode of Chef's Table a few years ago was one of the best. After he lost his sense of taste due to tongue cancer, it actually forced him to relearn everything he knew about cooking.
For the first time ever, I think I can be a chef without being able to taste. Because it's up here. It's not here.
Before, it was always he had to do it, and he would plate the dish for the first week or 2 weeks before anyone was allowed to plate it. Now, he's creating food without ever touching it.
He was basically starting all over from scratch, and now he's one of the most prolific chefs in the world. His restaurant, Alinea, has 3 Michelin stars, and this is a for-real comeback story.
I realized that to make a world-class restaurant, you can't do it yourself. You have to take the voice of all these people.
Now, I don't mean to equate cancer to a creative rut. Of course, those two things are totally different, but it does kind of show you how a worst-case scenario can give birth to a best-case scenario. That's probably a really extreme example of that, but it does show you that there can be something really good about having your creativity screech to a halt and the need to be reborn. I'm going to be talking about how to get through a creative rut in the best way possible. And heads up, I'm going to be using 2 of my favorite analogies to make this point. Baseball and trees. So buckle up. So baseball is a long sport. The baseball season is 162 games, and if those go well enough for you, then you'll have even more games to play in the playoffs. If you are a baseball player, it is highly unlikely that you're going to maintain the same level of performance all the way throughout a year, let alone your whole career. Slumps are something that every single player deals with, and one of the most important skills a young player can develop isn't avoiding slumps, it's understanding how to get out of them, how to not let that derail your trajectory, how to make adjustments and learn something from them. So how do you do that? Here are my tips. First thing you want to do when you're in a creative rut is examine the rut. You want to pick it up, you want to look inside it, investigate, give it a shake, see what it feels like, what it smells like. Aren't you glad I have a rut right here? This is what a creative rut actually looks like. There are so many possible reasons why you might be feeling like your creativity is stalled, and each of these different reasons commands a different response. All right, so I'm about to go pretty hard with a tree-related metaphor. Sorry, not sorry. Humans are a part of nature, and so I think ecological metaphors serve us really well in this illustration. One of the most common reasons, especially in the US, of why a tree might not be giving you fruit when you want it to is over-fertilization. This is especially true in landscape backyards where people are fertilizing their grass without thinking of how a tree is going to absorb it. It takes all those nutrients in and it actually just sends it towards growing its own wood rather than producing its own fruit. Our world makes it so easy to be overstimulated and under-inspired. There's like no shortage of content to dig into, to look after, and look, so much of it is good content, but it's not meant for one single person to consume all of that. You know, sometimes it really helps to just take a step back, take a break from Netflix, from social media, just figure out what you need to take a step back from, and then hit that reset and see how it does for you. Here's another reason why you might not be getting enough fruit. Not good pollination. Save the bees, man, and the butterflies and the hummingbirds and the bats and whoever else is pollinating around here. Creativity does not thrive in isolation, and I know there are so many romantic images of like a musician or an artist retreating into a cabin in the woods or some creative cave somewhere and emerging with a masterpiece. I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, but I found that really to make something that connects with people through this like kind of absurd experience that's life, you gotta go out and have those connections. You gotta go live amongst other people and have those interactions. It's very possible that your creativity is stunted by some degree of social isolation, and I know that's kind of something I've been facing recently as well. In the case of pears and apples, these not only need to cross-pollinate, they need to do so next to other varieties. What this means is we don't just need connection with other people who are like us, we need connection with those who bring different perspectives, different experiences, different backgrounds into the mix. Another common reason here is frost damage, especially if you live in the north. If temperatures dip while flowers are budding, that cuts them off from growth. I might go so far as to use that as an illustration for trauma, which is being experienced by so many people at such a large scale right now. You know what they say to do about trees that suffer from this frost damage? Not a whole lot, to be honest. Basically, plant them in different locations and hope for a better season to come. Sometimes you discover that the source of your creative rut runs a lot deeper than just writer's block or something, and there's actual serious deep work that needs to take place. I'm just throwing it out there to say, if that's the case, don't blame yourself. Don't let your own creative block be something else you feel even more burdened by. You want to know one other big reason why a tree might not be giving you good fruit right now? It's just not time. There are seasons to produce and there are seasons to rest. A tree can be fruitless, and if it's that time of the year, there's nothing wrong with that tree. It's fine for there to be times where you're just not working on anything, and honestly, that's hard for me to accept because I like to keep my hands pretty busy. To put it simply though, not every season is about productivity. There's some that are about stillness and rest. Some where you just have to take a step back and observe and learn things and then let them sink in, reflect. We weren't designed to really just be in the same mode forever and ever. That's not sustainable. Figuring out what season you're in, what's right for you, really helps. Then you can just be there, breathe. When you're in a creative rut and you can examine the rut itself, that will help you figure out what sort of rest you really need. Now you might be thinking, hang on, didn't we just say there were all kinds of things that could be creating the creative rut? Simply assuming a person just needs rest, isn't that a little bit of a one-size-fits-all prescription? No, because there are 7 types of rests. Did you know that? There was a TED Talk by Sandra Dalton Smith where she explains the 7 types of rests, like how she got to 7, why these 7 exactly, I don't know, that's not the part that I remember. The concept I remember is that not all rest is the same. Sometimes we look at people post quotes about the importance of rest and think it all just means we need to go to bed earlier. That's only one kind of rest, physical rest. And yes, I did look up the others to refresh my memory. There's creative rest, that's doing stuff to reawaken your sense of wonder. There's social rest, engaging people, feeling connected, cross-pollinating. There's mental rest, that's about calming your mind, meditation, journaling. Emotional rest, which is feeling confident in how you express your emotions, maybe the catharsis after a good conversation or a therapy session. sensory rest, that's like the practical stuff, like dimming the lights. And then there's spiritual rest, that's a big one. Those are activities that connect you with something bigger than yourself. With 2 newborns in the house, you might be thinking it's physical rest I'm running low on, and that's not so much the case, don't get me wrong. I'd take more of it if I could. But I'd say I've mostly been depleted of a combination of creative rest and spiritual rest. A big part of the reason is that I spend such a large portion of my day right here, my work from home desk. It's a sweet desk, right? But man, I spend a lot of time here. When days at a time go by and I realize that it's been a while since I've left the house, which is the sort of thing my life right now lends itself to, that's not good for my creativity. I've been finding it helpful to try and do more of my creative work outside the house. I got a membership at a nearby coffee shop. Means I get to just get cold brew and house coffee for free. Well, not for free because I paid for the membership, but you know, I get it without having to think about it once I'm there. And it's, I really like working out of coffee shops. So we're gonna go there and just have a bit of open creative time. If I do some writing, cool. Some brainstorming, cool. I might even spend the time just looking at TikToks I've bookmarked for future inspiration. That's totally legit. If I get nothing done, if nothing comes of this time, then I just figure maybe what my creativity and my brain really needed was an afternoon off, and I'll accept it. Awesome coffee helps. I love open creative time. Number 3, this kind of goes hand in hand, but you need to know how to fill your creative cup. The creative process is so much more than just sitting down to make stuff. It starts a long time before that. It's not just what you do when you're in the studio or in front of the canvas or at the keyboard. It's also when you're sipping wine with a friend and reading a book or catching up with someone you haven't talked to in a while. Maybe watching a documentary, playing with your kids, all these things. We think of these things, these activities as just stuff we do in our downtime, but these are actually our life experiences. And when we take in what life has to offer, when we respond to that, when we process it, that's what fuels creativity. So many people make Netflix into a punching bag as something that gets in the way of your creative work. Like, yeah, how many times have I heard people say, like, if you have an hour to spend in front of Netflix every day, then you have an hour you could spend writing. And look, for sure, that's an important message some people could stand to hear. But also, I think that we're at our healthiest when there's a balance between our creative output and our creative input. I actually get a lot out of the stories I watch. Like, a lot. I love it when they make me think hard, when they make me feel something really deeply by connecting to a character or a situation or even just a scene or a vibe. But it can't just be as simple as throwing something on and then spacing out. Like, I actually want to be immersed in the story and to give it my full attention. I want to let myself get taken in by the cinematography, notice the sound work. I like to watch with the lights low or off so that I could really be taken in by what's on screen, and I want to make sure that it's something worth my time. You know, the kind of thing I want more people to make. Watching a movie like Swan Song or a series like Station 11, that actually ends up turning into an experience that's really good for my creativity and my sense of wonder. The thing that fills your creative cup specifically is going to vary person to person. Nature is a pretty common one. So is music. Some people really get a lot out of old things like antiques or artifacts or these things that connect you with the past, like there's some connectivity there. Like I said, travel, new environments, that's the thing that does it for me. And lately I've been challenged by my lack of ability to go new places. Fortunately, I recently had the chance to do something about that. Our hopes and expectations, black holes and revelations. So I've been feeling lately that I just really needed to get out of town and go on a little adventure. And so we are only a little bit outside of town, but this is good for right now. We're in Anza Borrego State Park. But since it's these guys' first time out of town. Kind of sets the stage, sets our expectations for what day trips and little adventures and outings look like. And if it goes well, hopefully we'll feel empowered and emboldened to take them on bigger adventures. And if not, well, it's just a setback, but we might have to adjust our expectations. Although we can only do that so much. We have plane tickets booked out of the country and their passports showed up yesterday, so we're all cheering that this goes well. Thankfully, our time in the desert went really well. We were able to enjoy a short but successful outing and have a positive experience our first time navigating a day trip with our newborn twins. This bodes well for future travels, which is good because I am so ready for them. Even after this experience in the desert, I already started to feel a bit more energized, a lot less stuck, and a little bit more inspired than I'd felt in a long while. Being able to connect in nature and to change my scenery always does wonders for me. A personal favorite highlight was hiking in some of the desert slot canyons. A few other hikers came by, and it was fun to suddenly interrupt their very adventurous atmosphere with a taste of the domestic life. Okay, there's one last bit on how to handle a creative rut, and it's this. Give thanks for the rut. How's that? Do I sound super wise? Like, when you feel hunger, give thanks for the hunger, for that is true nourishment? I don't know what I'm saying. Actually, I kinda do. A creative rut can be really frustrating. It can disrupt your workflow. It might have you thrown up against a deadline where you're like, I don't know, I've got nothing. It might even go so far as to make you question your identity, wondering about who you are and why you're even doing this stuff in the first place. None of that is comfortable. But you don't exactly learn when things are comfortable and when everything's going easy. You learn when there's a struggle, when you're forced to think through your decisions, and when you have to ask yourself, is this actually what I want to be doing? In this way, a creative rut can actually be thanks for hanging with me. Perhaps you clicked on this because you are in the middle of a creative rut yourself right now. If that's you, best of luck to you. Been there, kind of am there right now, and I hope you find what you need. I highly recommend that TED Talk I mentioned earlier about the 7 types of rest. I also recommend that Grant Ashot's episode of Chef's Table. It was really good. And if you like this, be sure to like and subscribe for more, because I won't be in a creative rut for forever, and I will have more videos for you. So stay tuned.